and I am very glad to be a part of this webinar presentation, particularly because of my great love of Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. They are some of my favorite countries worldwide. And so in a particular way, I'm glad to be able to share this information with you on careers in international affairs. As I said, I'll be joined shortly by my colleague, Alan Fusetto, from the Johns Hopkins SAIS Bologna campus. So, as we think about all that's possible with careers in international affairs, you may know of some of the common categories, things like diplomacy, working in national defense, working in international development. But about 42% of our graduates end up in the private sector in a range of issues. So you'll find very meaningful careers in communications and public relations, energy and the environment, international education, working on questions of human rights, science and technology. So many different fields come together under the umbrella of international affairs. And part of that is because of the interdisciplinary framework. And what that means is that within the context of studying international affairs, you're going to touch on so many different kinds of issues. You'll learn about economics, about language, history, culture, business, politics. All of these pieces come together because all of those pieces come together in our real world as well. So when you see APSIA graduates or international affairs graduates in the world, as I said, you may find them in different ministries. You'll find them at Chevron, at the Walt Disney Company. You'll find them at Coca-Cola. You'll find them at major banks and banking institutions. You'll find them in nonprofit organizations all over the world, whether it's doing relief and development work, as I said, working on education. You'll find them with the UN, the World Bank, NATO, the European Union. One of the best parts for me about being in this field is how many different pieces come together under the umbrella of international affairs. So how would you know whether this is the kind of place for you? And one set of questions you may want to ask yourself is, what kinds of things do you like? What sorts of things really engage your interest and your passion and your driving force? So it might be about tackling big problems, global poverty, climate change. Obviously, now we're thinking a great deal about the interconnectedness of disease. Maybe you feel a strong call to service and you want to help people, whether that's in your local community, in your region, across Europe, around the world. Perhaps it's just a general interest in curiosity about other cultures, other places, other languages. Maybe if you're like me, you just enjoy debating and arguing, and you like thinking about the complexity of politics and government questions. But also, if you have that underlying drive, that call to be part of some bigger social change, any of these issues may spark an interest in international affairs and may create a welcome home for you within the field. So what sorts of things can be put together as you think about your university or college major, as you think about the kinds of experiences you want to get? There's a wide range of disciplines, as I said, or issue areas that can be combined to bring together a successful career in international affairs. I know the slide isn't quite loading, but when it does, you'll see an interesting list of many different possibilities. It could be combining a background in computer science with training in international security to work on matters like cyber policy. It could be combining an interest in mobile technologies with an interest in international development. Some new, really interesting things are coming online about using mobile technologies for health. It might be combining an interest in environmental science with regional studies to look at questions of climate change, climate adaptation. All of these different pieces can come together to help you be successful within a career in international affairs. And some things may be more traditional disciplines. Perhaps you're interested in history and in a region of the world, and you combine that with an interest in international business. From there, you could use that as a way to be a political risk analyst or someone who watches how conditions are developing in a particular place to consult with a business about where they should make their next investment. All of these different pieces fall under the umbrella of international affairs training and can be a great way to combine different skills and interests that you have into a really successful career. So, what are the general skills and traits that you might need? I would argue there's really 5 things that are critical competencies, no matter what sorts of fields you want to get into. So, the first would be having some sort of professional experience. It could be an internship, a job, volunteer work, any of those different ways to expose you to how organizations work. I think it's critical to learn how to write well and to speak comfortably in front of lots of different kinds of audiences. And why this is important is because even if you know all that there is to know about a subject, if you can't express it clearly and coherently to many different audiences, it's really not as beneficial, and it doesn't help to have all that knowledge if you can't share it with someone else. Technical skills, the ability to analyze information, to sort out what's true and what's false, to sort out what's relevant and what isn't, and then to be able to manipulate that data to make an argument is a really important skill set, particularly now when we collect so much information on one another. Understanding project management can also be critical because it lets you showcase that you know how to take an idea in your head and create it in a reality. Can you just dream of things, or can you actually bring them into existence and move something along from being at its initial stages through to development and then out the other side? And then also what's critical, I think, is the ability to have a network of people that you can turn to for information, that you can turn to for advice, who may be able to suggest you for different jobs or positions. This network is a really useful tool. And even within the context of meeting with friends and colleagues at an American Corners or through the Education USA programming, through different networks that might exist in your area, you'll be able to learn about and meet so many different kinds of people. So, with that kind of advice in mind, how can you get these kinds of experiences? And some of the simplest ways, as I said, if you're able to get professional experience with volunteering, with internships, in some university contexts, you can do what's called a work study, where there's a pot of money available to help pay you for expenses and for schooling to do certain jobs around the university campus. If you're able to do study abroad, or to travel overseas to get exposure, to participate in fellowship programs, all of these can be great ways to practice your communication skills, to practice your language, to practice your writing. You can also practice your analytics as well as your writing through the classes that you choose by submitting your work to blogs or publications, to journals, having someone else review and evaluate the analyses you do, and then being able to give you feedback. It also shows that you can demonstrate to others your expertise or your analytical skills, your writing skills. All of these are great ways to get some experience and get some additional items on your resume. In other ways, you can go through and do volunteering experiences, service programs. Erasmus should be on here. There's lots of different ways that you can gain that project management experience that I talked about. It might be in your local faith community. There might be a group of people in your town who are organizing to do a particular project. The more you can take on a leadership role, the more you're able to showcase your ability to move a project down the line, the more you can really gain these kinds of skills. And as I talked about, to build your network, looking at young professionals groups in your area. I used to work with a group of young transatlantic leaders or transatlantically minded leaders based in each of the 3 Baltic countries. So there was a lot of programming they did to bring together folks who were interested in questions of security, questions of the transatlantic alliance, questions of US-Europe relations. So I know that there's a lot of those great opportunities to network and build friendships and alliances in that way. You can have great relationships with your professors or graduates of your institution. In the States, this is a very common thing, and I know more and more European institutions as well are really building up robust alumni relations programs. So it can be, again, a good way to build out your set of information and the network that you have. In these times, however, some of these in-person activities might be a little more challenging. So there are lots and lots of remote internship and volunteering opportunities that would give you a chance to build up your resume and your experience. Something like the United Nations Online Volunteer Corps would love people with language experience, quantitative experience, even just the time to do some different projects for nonprofits around the world. So it can be a good way to get exposure and experience even if you can't leave your house, much as I cannot here in DC. There are also a number of programs that help you build up your experience, things like MapGive, which is another program run by the US Department of State, trying to encourage people to support mapping and data usage to help humanitarian development projects, help humanitarian relief projects. On the local level, there may be institutions, governments, hospitals, uh, education systems who could really use extra help right now. And I don't just mean in terms of being of service to people who are sick, but we're hearing from cities and local organizations that they need people to help them do data analysis, that they're looking for people to evaluate what is working and what isn't, to again do translation perhaps, to again think about communications programs and opportunities. So there's lots of ways to get experience, even if you can't leave your house, because organizations really need human capacity right now to think about how they're addressing these big challenges. Also, again, even if you can't leave your house, you can write for a particular blog, you can publish even through LinkedIn. You can ask a professor if they need help, or a teacher if they need help with some additional research. You can really delve deeply into a subject, just you and the internet, or just you and some books, to gain some expertise or exposure to an area that you might otherwise not have any knowledge of. There's also a lot of sites right now that are paying people to do short-term projects. So thinking about what we would call freelance work or consulting work. And there's a lot of websites that bring together short-term experts or again, people just with time to do one-off projects. And sometimes you can even get paid for it. There's lots and lots of Zoom meetings, meetings like this, webinars, online meetups, discussion boards. Lots of people are finding new ways to build community, even if it is remotely or just mostly you talking to your computer, and through that trying to reach out and connect with other people. So as we look at all of these different components and different skills areas, I'm going to turn the floor over to my colleague, Alan, from Johns Hopkins SAIS, to talk to you about some of the application pieces that might be needed. And again, if you have questions as we go, please feel free to put them in that chat box, and we're hoping to leave time for questions afterwards. Alan? Let's see how we can do.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there you are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carmen. Thank you, and welcome all of you. And so Carmen gave you a general overview of the international affair world. Now I would like to give you some tips and advice about the application process, okay, and specifically what you need to do in order to have an outstanding application. Okay, so as you can see here, if you decide to go through international school and also international relations schools, you need to have some documents ready since the beginning of the year to apply then for internships or job opportunities. So first of all, cover letter, resume. So I would say then, of course, 100% of application need a resume and 90% of application require a cover letter. Apart from that, some applications require also a transcript from, of course, your actual university, and also writing samples, particularly if you apply for internship job opportunities in think tanks or in the in the policy area. So because they want to see how to write. So writing sample are usual. A document that is very required, and then of course references. So I'm gonna go through all that, specifically about cover letter, resume, and then references. So cover letter, okay. So how to structure a cover letter? So first of all, I would like to say that the cover letter must be of one page. Okay, must be precise, sharp, and memorable. And the objective of the cover letter is threefold. Okay, the first one is convince the reader that you have the skills and that you know the organization. Okay. And then that you have the right background and also the right skills they're looking for, and that you're a perfect fit for that position. Okay, saying that the cover letter should not be a replica of your resume. Okay, and should be structured in three different ways. So the first one is you, the second part is me, and the third part is we. So the you part, this part is very important because here you have to demonstrate that you know about the organization, okay, and that you research also about a company. For example, try to put here that you read something in the news about the company, or that you attended an event for the company. For example, the company show up at the university and you're gonna meet some representative of the company, put in your cover letter. Okay, so you have to show them that you did research of the company and that you're interested in the company. The second part is the me. Me means you, I mean the candidate. Okay, here you have to demonstrate that you have the right skills, and it's quite easy because it's enough to look at the job description. As you can see in the most job description, there are the skill requirements. Okay, so you have to read through the skill requirement and then pick up 1, 2, maximum 3 skills that you think are important for you, and put in the resume, in your cover letter, and explain why you have these skills, so where you get these skills, okay, with concrete examples. And then the last part is the we, means closing the cover letter and okay, thank you the reader, and say something like, I look forward to to have an interview, thank you for your time, this is my contact. So one page, that's very important. And then we have, of course, the most important document, that is the resume. Here again, the resume, one page. It should be visual, powerful, and of course, no spelling and grammar mistakes. This is very important, and this is true also for the cover letter. Put some bullet points, okay? Not many, but for each internship or a job opportunity that you have, try to have at least 3 bullet points. It also depends on the length of your experience. But then it's important to have what we call task and accomplishment. Usually the bigger mistake is that students put always and only task, okay? So I did this, and I was responsible for this, okay, but never write down accomplishments. Okay, accomplishments means numbers, facts, figures, data. Okay, I would like to just read you a phrase of accomplishment. For example, led a team of 3 accountant executives, achieved 20 million euro revenues, exceeding goals by 25%. This was one bullet point, of course, from one person that has some years working experience, but just to give you an idea that it's important to put in your resume numbers, facts, action verbs. Try to keep sentences very short, and factual and right to the point. Okay. And then, of course, here again, a clear connection with the job description. So the job description should be your best friend. You have to really know about the job description, what they're really looking for, and try to put all the skills they're looking for in your resume, and then explain some of them, as we said in the cover letter. Other tips I can give you, of course, so once you prepare, so once your documents are prepared, you will be called for an interview. So before an interview, it is important that you are prepared. Okay, so that's very important. Preparation before an interview is very, very important. So you have to be prepared about the company, you have to be prepared about the job position, and also you have to be prepared about the interviewer. So try to ask to the HR, the person who contacts you, who will be, the name of the person going to interview you, in order you can, do a research through LinkedIn, or at least to know who you have in front of you. Okay. And practice the interview. You can get in touch with the career services of your school, of your university. You can practice with your classmate, for example, because it's very important to be there at the interview, that you're very well prepared, okay, and in a very professional way, okay. And it's also very important, try to get a lot of information by people working there, okay. And people working there could be alumni. So, and then that brings me to also the last point. So build your network. As Carmen says, it's very important to build a network. A network could be your classmates, professor, but above all, alumni. American university, but also European universities are really investing a lot of resources on building and strengthening alumni network. Okay, and I can give you an example from Johns Hopkins. 90% of the internships stem directly from alumni, because this is a very important network. Okay, and also be careful about your online presence, specifically LinkedIn. Okay, so if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, build your LinkedIn profile. If you already have your LinkedIn profile, try to shape your LinkedIn profile, because nowadays, when a recruiter receives a resume and they decide to have an interview, before calling you, they're gonna check your LinkedIn profile, and they're gonna check if what you put in your LinkedIn profile matches what the content of your resume. So it's very important to have a professional LinkedIn profile. Also important are the recommendations. Okay, so usually these recommendation letter, they can ask you, HR manager can ask you a recommendation letter before sending you an offer, not only a job offer, but also an internship offer. They can also ask recommendation through LinkedIn. Okay, it's a little bit different, but the rules are always the same. The most important rule is you should ask recommendation from people that you really know and people that you work with. Okay, so avoid to ask recommendation to your family, for example, to your friend. Okay, but always try to contact your former colleagues, for example, your former boss. Although you maybe you spend just 1 month in a company for an internship, it doesn't matter. Okay, it's important that you work well with that person, you get along with that person. Okay. And yeah, of course, try to give that person all the information, okay, that can require. And it is very important to give the recommendation and references, because otherwise, if you do not send to the company a recommendation letter or the reference they ask you, they can pull off the internship or the full-time offer. So that was enough for me, and I don't know if Carmen, maybe we can open the floor for any questions that could be the student can have.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alan, so much for walking us through those important documents. So now, as Alan said, the floor is for you all. If you have questions, please feel free to type them in that chat box. I'd also be curious to get a better sense of who you are, where you're from, what level you are. Are you already at university or perhaps out of university, before university? So please feel free to share information with us in the chat box. I also have on the screen for you some links to finding other information about what we do at APSIA, different careers, ways to pay for school and experiences, and then my contact information and Alan's as well if you'd like to follow up. But this time is for you all, and I see a few people typing, which is great. While we wait, Alan, have you seen from the
Yeah.
students you work with some important personal traits or skills that have really helped students succeed in the market in Europe or in the United States?
Yeah, so we can talk along about hard skills. Of course, in international affair, as we said, languages are important. One of the most important skills is speaking more than one language, but also writing skills are very important, and also a little bit of analytical skills. So that's the so-called hard skills that are very important, and usually 90% of recruiters ask these skills. But it's very important also to have the so-called soft skills. Okay, the soft skills are, how you behave. Okay, so it's nothing you can you can take from your regular classes, but of course there is career services inside each university that can help you to hone these skills. These skills, soft skills, could be, for example, how to present yourself. Okay, it's very important to present yourself in a good professional way in front of a recruiter or in front of a manager. Okay, so my suggestion is try to really deep, and especially during the summer, maybe when you have more time, there are online plenty of resources about how to improve the soft skills. Okay, so I think that's a very important part of your also professional background, let's say.
Agreed. We're joined today by Inga from Lithuania, who works with students in their educational career services, which is wonderful. Welcome, Inga. Thank you. And I see a few other people typing, either questions or to share more about themselves. Those soft skills, I agree, Alan, and even organizations like the OECD, who
Yeah.
look at the way the workforce is changing, talk about how the ability to work with others in teams is the number one critical skill that employers are asking for. And to me, that is a great thing for students to practice at any level, whether it's through sports or through volunteer projects or through clubs and organizations on their campus. There are so many great ways to get teamwork experience. And then, as you said, on their cover letter and in their resume, they can translate that into really good, detailed bullet points to help explain what they did, who they did it with, what the results were, all of those important pieces. So students have so many great opportunities to practice these things that employers are really looking for.
Yeah, and especially if I can add, especially if you are at the beginning of your career, I mean, if you don't have a lot of experiences, of course, what recruiter looking for is soft skills. Okay, so, and yeah, in your cover letter, you should be able to transfer all these soft skills. Yeah, for example, as Carmen said, teamwork is very important in working mean. So how you run a project along with your classmates, for example. Okay, so be able also to work with people from different nationalities. That's also a very critical skills. Okay, in in international relation area, because our opportunities are really from all over Europe and all over US. So, and most of them in really international companies. So it's getting along with people from different nationalities. That's a very important thing.
And I know for myself too, even just knowing when you have maybe made a cultural mistake is also an important thing to pay attention to, and that only comes, unfortunately, with making many cultural mistakes, as I have done. But it's an important learning experience, and it also gives you something good to talk about in an interview or in other cases when you can show that you've learned something or grown
Right.
or how you've improved. I still see a few people typing, and I know we have a few minutes left. I do want to share some, again, information about how APSIA can help you even after this webinar is over. We have many events. We have lots of tools and resources, whether you're thinking about graduate school or jobs or careers. We're also very active on social media to share as many opportunities as we can. We do have, it looks like, a question from Veronica. She's an Italian graduate in foreign languages and cultures and would like to start a master's in international relations. Fantastic. And she'd like to start an internship before applying to graduate school. She's found it very difficult looking for an internship with only a bachelor's in foreign languages. Alan, what have you seen, not only in Italy, but in your other work, particularly for undergraduate students with language skills?
No, as said, so languages are very important. So at SAIS Europe, for example, we teach languages. Okay, so because our students before graduation, they must be able to speak in a fluent way, at least two languages. So it's very important. So it's a good point studying languages because English but it's not enough. I mean, if you're in Europe, above all, if you're in Europe, if you wanna spend a career in Europe, at least one another European language, could be French, could be German, could be Spanish, is very important. So languages for sure is very important, but sometimes is not enough. Today, really, also the analytical part could be complementary. Okay, and my suggestion is, if you have a 100% languages background, and in your background, university background, you don't have analytical skills, try again to get some courses during the summer and get these skills. And if you then want to apply for international relations schools, I think most of the schools in international relations, they also have program inside. This is true for SAIS, for example, that help you to gain these analytical skills. Specifically a little bit about macro, micro, but also statistics are, the basic then if you want to start a career in international relations.
Veronica, I would also suggest if you have already a background in language and culture, you did not share more about the kinds of fields or topics you would like to master, but you can use your language and your cultural skills perhaps to work on questions of public diplomacy or tourism. So sometimes local organizations are looking to promote themselves abroad, and so they are looking for volunteers or interns to help with those questions. Sometimes you will see companies who are looking to promote themselves and need people with cross-cultural competencies. So there may be a local company or even a local association of companies or a government structure that's supporting companies who want to export or attract tourists who really need those kinds of language skills. I mentioned earlier the UN Volunteer Corps, which is online. So that's a way to gain some experience remotely. And they very much need people with different language skills. So thinking about people who are trying to work across cultures, international education organizations, companies, tourism, all of those things would really value expertise in language and culture. We also have a question. What can international students in the US as part of OPT, what can practice international students in the US as part of OPT after graduating with a bachelor's in international relations? Alan, I know you mostly work with graduate students, but do you have a sense of what BA graduates might be able to do with OPT in the US?
I'm not sure about the OPT. I'm not sure what is the OPT. So it's something specifically for US, right?
Yes, so I can take this one.
Okay,
The
thank you.
OPT is permission to work for a year in the US after you graduate from a US institution. So it's essentially a work visa um,
Okay.
to give you permission to stay and work. I think in some fields also it's longer than just 1 year, so it depends on the field. But in international relations, we see a number of international students, even with bachelor's degrees. Some of them will end up in think tanks, which are research organizations or policy people who make policy recommendations. I live in Washington, D.C., so many international students will stay for and work for the World Bank or the IMF, or any of the multilateral institutions that are here in the US. We see some companies, but it's changing, and really graduates need to show why they are the best choice compared to someone who requires less paperwork. But it does happen. So a lot of the positions that I see for bachelor's graduates in international affairs are more in the research field or with the multilaterals. If you wanted to stay, I think lots of experience writing, researching, publishing, doing analytics. Those are the kinds of things that are really going to help you stand out from uh, other generalists who have degrees in international affairs, who, as I said, may just simply require less paperwork on the part of the employer. I want to be respectful of all of your time, and again, I appreciate you all staying with us for the brief delay at the beginning. If you have any other questions, please feel free to type them in now, but you also have our information if you would like to follow up later. For any of you who are thinking about graduate degrees in international affairs, we run a monthly series with best practices in applying to graduate school that takes place every month. You can find it at the events webpage you see on your screen. We also have lots of tools and resources to help tell this story on social media, our website, and by email. So please feel free to follow up and be in touch. And I'm very grateful to all of you for coming this afternoon. And I hope you stay healthy and safe. And I also want to thank Alan for all of his insights. And I encourage
Thank
you,
you.
if you get a chance, to learn more about the Bologna campus and the other parts of Johns Hopkins SAIS.
Yeah, thank you very much, Carmen, and to all of you. Again, here you can see my email. So if you want to reach for some information about SAIS, I can feel free to do that, and then we can chat, or I can put in contact with my colleagues of the admission. Thank you.